My yard was peaceful until one day, someone put a swing set on it without my permission. When I asked them to remove it, they scoffed and said, "Why do you care? You don't even have kids." Furious, I contacted a lawyer, and when they were ordered to pay thousands in damages, they cried, but it was just a swing. I'm a 45-year-old woman living in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. I've lived here for almost 12 years. I don't have kids. I'm not married. Just me and my old dog, Charlie, and a garden I take pride in. It's not some mansion estate or anything, just a normal house with a decent-sized backyard. That yard is my happy place. It's where I sip my morning coffee, pull weeds, and think about life. Until they showed up. About 6 months ago, the house next door sold. A young couple bought it, Scott and Dana Martin. They moved in with their 3 loud kids and a golden retriever that barked all the time. Whatever, I thought. Neighborhoods change. Kids make noise. I can deal. But then one Monday morning, everything went off the rails. I was standing in my kitchen making coffee, and out the window, something looked different. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Then I blinked again. No, there it was. A whole swing set in my backyard. And not a small one. I'm talking a full-blown wooden swing set. 2 swings. A mini climbing wall. A slide. A rope ladder. A little fort thing at the top. It looked like it came from a catalog. It had fresh mulch around it too. Like it had been there for days. I froze. My coffee went cold in my hand. Who the hell put that in my yard? I went outside, still in my robe, walked toward the monstrosity, and saw muddy boot prints around it. Then I heard laughing, kids' voices. The Martin kids came tearing around the side of the house, ran straight past me, and climbed right onto the swings. I stared, stunned. I asked them gently, "Hey kids, where did this come from?" "Daddy built it," one of them yelled before sliding down. A minute later, Dana Martin walked out onto her deck. She waved at me like we were old friends. I didn't wave back. I asked her straight up, "Did you guys build this in my yard?" She gave a little laugh like I had said something cute. "Oh yeah, we put it up this weekend." The kids were so excited. I blinked. "But this is my yard." She looked confused. Then shrugged. "Oh, come on, you've got so much space back there. You don't have kids. You weren't using it." I swear to God, she said that with a straight face. I repeated again, slower this time. "This is my property." She just scoffed and said, "Why do you care? It's just a swing set." Then she called her kids inside for lunch and walked off like the conversation never happened. I stood there for a good 5 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. I took pictures of everything. Then I looked up the property lines again just to double-check. I even dug out the paperwork from when I bought the house. No doubt about it. The swing set was fully on my side. I waited a day before confronting them again. Maybe they'd realize their mistake and take it down. Nope. The next day, more kids were over. I counted 7 of them screaming, jumping, throwing mulch. So I knocked on their door. Scott answered. He looked like he was already annoyed. "Yeah?" I said calmly, "That swing set is on my property. I'm asking you again to take it down." He gave me a smirk. "It's just a few feet, relax." "It's not a few feet. It's 20. And I didn't give you permission." He laughed and said, "Seriously? You're gonna be that person? You're mad about a swing set?" I told him if it wasn't gone by the weekend, I'd call a lawyer. He raised his eyebrows like I'd threatened to burn his house down. "I'd like to see you try," he said, then shut the door in my face. So I did. I contacted a lawyer. Not because I'm some lawsuit-happy person, but because I felt disrespected on a level I can't describe. My yard was being treated like a public park, and these people acted like I was the one being unreasonable. I found a local lawyer, Mr. Jameson, who specializes in real estate and property disputes. I explained everything. Showed him the photos. Showed him the plat map. He told me I had an open and shut case. He drafted a formal letter and sent it to them. Remove the swing set within 10 days or face legal consequences. I thought maybe, this would finally make them take me seriously. Nope. 10 days came and went. The swing set was still there. The kids were still there, louder than ever. And then, it got worse. They started leaving toys all over the place. Soccer balls, scooters, a damn plastic pool. Their dog started pooping in my yard, and they didn't pick it up. One day I saw a folding chair left near my garden, like someone had just sat there and watched their kids run wild on my lawn. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Every time I looked outside, someone else was in my yard. I stopped going outside. I stopped gardening. I even stopped drinking my morning coffee by the window. My peace was gone. I called Mr. Jameson again. He said, "We're filing." And that's where things really started to explode. So we filed the lawsuit. It wasn't just for removal. Mr. Jameson suggested we go after damages too, for trespassing, emotional distress, and legal fees. I agreed. I was done playing nice. The papers were served on a Thursday. I watched from my window as the process server walked up to their front door and handed the envelope to Scott. Dana stood behind him, arms crossed. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could see Dana's face go red. She shouted something, slammed the door, then stormed into her backyard, my backyard, and stood there, hands on hips, like she was daring me to come out. I didn't. 2 days later, someone spray-painted the word bitch in big red letters across my garbage bin. I reported it to the police. They shrugged. No cameras, no witnesses, not much we can do. I asked them to make a note of it anyway. I wasn't stupid. I knew who it was. The next week, my garden beds were torn up. Not fully destroyed, but stomped on, like someone had taken a walk through them in heavy boots. A few plants were missing. I cried that night. Not just because of the flowers, but because I knew this was now war. The Martins had money. Scott was some kind of manager at an insurance company, and Dana ran a home bakery business from their kitchen. They weren't struggling. But they didn't think they'd actually lose. At the first court hearing, Dana wore heels and a bright pink blazer and glared at me like I had slapped her kids. Scott kept whispering to her. They claimed in front of the judge that the swing set was barely on my property and that they assumed it was shared land. Mr. Jameson pulled out the property lines, satellite photos, timestamps, and more. The judge didn't look amused. But then came the twist I didn't see coming. Their lawyer stood up and said, "Actually, Your Honor, my clients have a document that shows a discrepancy in the fence placement dating back to 2009. We believe there may be grounds to challenge the true property line." What? That fence had been there since before I bought the house. I knew it was slightly crooked, but the plat map said clearly my land extended 5 feet beyond it. If they were trying to argue that my backyard wasn't actually mine, that was a whole different game. The judge looked at their lawyer and said he'd allow a land survey. I nearly choked. They were trying to pull a technicality to keep the swing set on my land. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a swing. It was about ownership, boundaries, control. I agreed to the survey, but I didn't trust them. Sure enough, a week later, a surveyor showed up, one they hired. He spent 2 hours pacing around the backyard, sticking little flags in the grass, measuring with tape, squinting at documents. Dana stood there the whole time, arms folded, smug as ever. 2 days later, they submitted his report. According to their survey, the swing set was only 6 inches over the line, not 20 feet like we claimed. I was livid. I asked Mr. Jameson if this was normal. He rolled his eyes. "That survey's garbage," he said. "We'll get our own guy." So we did. A licensed surveyor, no ties to either party. He did a full assessment, brought drones, digital equipment, the works. His report said the swing set was 22 feet into my land. Not even close. We brought that to the judge. Their lawyer tried to argue that surveys can vary and that they needed a third opinion. That's when the judge finally lost patience. She ordered a court-appointed surveyor to settle the matter once and for all. And in the meantime, the swing set stayed up. The kids kept playing. My dog started having stress diarrhea. I started sleeping with earplugs. My blood pressure went up. My therapist suggested meditation. Then came the fire pit. Yep, you read that right. About 3 weeks after the court-appointed surveyor came by, but before the final results were announced, I looked outside and saw smoke. Scott had dug a damn fire pit right next to the swing set. In my yard, a whole circle of chairs, fresh logs, even a metal grill cover. That night, they had friends over. Adults laughing, drinking, kids running around. The smell of burning would drifted into my bedroom window. I called the non-emergency police line. An officer came out, walked into the backyard, looked at the setup, and then walked back to the Martins' house. I watched the conversation from my window. 10 minutes later, he left. The fire kept burning. The next morning, I found a half-burned marshmallow on my back porch. I emailed Mr. Jameson again. We need to add more damages. He agreed. The next twist came a few days later when I got a letter, not from court, but from Child Protective Services. Apparently, someone, I wonder who, had filed a complaint that I had been taking photos of children and may pose a risk. My stomach dropped. I met with the caseworker. She was professional but clearly just checking boxes. I showed her the pictures I'd taken, swing set construction, property lines, etc. All with no kids visible. She nodded, made a few notes, and said, "Looks like this was a retaliatory report." I nodded. That's what I thought too. She closed her notebook. We get these a lot during property disputes. People weaponize the system. That scared me more than anything else. This wasn't just about property anymore. It wasn't just about noise or land or even respect. They wanted to ruin me. About a week after CPS cleared me, things got quiet. Suspiciously quiet. The swing set was still there. The fire pit was still there. But the noise stopped. No kids screaming. No parties. No chairs dragged into my yard. Nothing. It should have felt like a win. But instead, it felt like the calm before something worse. I was right. I came home from work on a rainy Thursday and found a letter taped to my front door. It was anonymous. No signature. Just typed words. "You should drop the lawsuit. You're not as safe as you think you are. Accidents happen." I just stood there, soaked in the rain, staring at those words. I called the police. They came out, took the letter, and filed a report. But again, no cameras, no witnesses. Could be a prank, the officer said. I started looking into security systems that night. Spent a ridiculous amount of money I didn't have on motion lights and cameras. Took a few days to set up, but once everything was in place, I felt a little better. Until the cameras caught something. 2 nights later, just past 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I pulled up the live feed and saw a figure, hoodie, flashlight, sneaking into my backyard. They walked around for a few minutes, shined the light at the camera, then left. Nothing taken, nothing moved. Just looking. The police actually took that seriously. They made a note of the video and said they'd patrol more often. But again, no face. No ID. That same day, the court-appointed survey came back. And it confirmed everything we'd said from the beginning. The swing set, the fire pit, the mulch, the chairs, all of it was sitting deep in my yard. 21 feet over the property line. That should have been the end of it. But no. The Martins filed an appeal. Now they were claiming that the original plat map was incorrect, and they were demanding an official reassessment of land distribution between both houses. Their argument? Our clients feel they were misled during purchase. Mr. Jameson told me this was nonsense. Total delay tactic. But it meant more hearings. More stress. More months. Around this time, a local reporter reached out. Someone had leaked the story to the media, probably a neighbor, and now a small news site wanted to run a piece on the backyard swing set war. I didn't want to be involved, but they already had photos of the swing. They already knew names. It was happening with or without me. I gave a short statement. The article ran. It blew up more than I expected. Comments online were split. Some people said I was childless and bitter. Others said the Martins were entitled suburban nightmares. People shared it on Facebook. Even got picked up by a bigger news outlet 2 towns over. That's when my mailbox got smashed. And a week later, someone egged my house. And then, Someone posted my address on a parenting group on Facebook, accusing me of suing a family over playground equipment. I started getting letters, emails, some of them cruel. One of them called me a lonely hag. Another said I should move out if I hate families so much. I started parking in my garage with the door shut before I even got out of the car. But I wasn't giving up. Not after everything they'd done. Not after all the nights I cried alone in my house. Not after they tried to paint me like I was crazy, dangerous, or both. Mr. Jameson doubled down. We filed additional claims, defamation, harassment, emotional distress. We had camera footage. We had police reports. We had everything. Then, one final twist hit me like a punch to the chest. Turns out, the Martins hadn't even finished paying for the swing set. I found this out because I got a call from the company that built it. Apparently, Dana had listed my address on the paperwork, and when they started getting mail returned, they called me. The guy on the phone was polite. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am, but we were wondering if you could pass a message along to Mrs. Martin. Her final payment is overdue." I blinked. "You mean she hasn't paid you?" "Not the full amount. We received a partial deposit. The rest is still pending." "And she used my address?" "Yes, ma'am." I wrote everything down. "Send it all to Mr. Jameson." He smiled for the first time in weeks. "Let's go for the throat," he said. And that's where we're at now. Court is still ongoing. The Martins are digging in deeper. But so am I. I used to be someone who avoided conflict. I kept to myself. Paid my taxes. Mowed my lawn. Smiled at neighbors. Never wanted drama. Now? I'm a woman with nothing left to lose, except the little piece of peace I've spent years building. The lawsuit dragged for months. By this point, every day felt like war. I'd wake up, check the yard, check the cameras, then check my email for more legal updates. Mr. Jameson was working overtime. He started preparing for a full-blown trial. The Martins were still denying everything. They refused to pay, refused to apologize, refused to move the swing set, even though it had now rotted in the Ohio rain and barely got used anymore. They acted like martyrs, like I was the monster. But then came the hearing. The final one. The court called both sides. It was early spring, chilly but sunny. I wore all black. Dana showed up in another pastel blazer, still trying to look like the perfect mom. Scott looked bored. The judge came in, looked tired of all of us, and said, "I've read everything. I've seen enough. We're ruling today." My heart pounded. She started slow, going over the facts. The surveys. The trespassing. The photos. The reports. Then she said it, the swing set, fire pit, and other structures were installed on Ms. Carter's property without permission. The defendants were repeatedly asked to remove them. They refused. Therefore, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff. I felt like I stopped breathing. The judge ordered the Martins to remove everything from my yard within 10 days, pay for all legal fees, nearly $14,000, pay an additional $5,000 in damages, but that wasn't even the end. Because then the judge looked at me. She said, "While the court sides with the plaintiff on the matter of property rights, we must also address the escalation and behavior of both parties. We are not blind to the public nature of this case, the online attention, and retaliatory actions." She fined me $500 for engaging with the media and contributing to public conflict. It stung, but I took it. I knew I hadn't been perfect. I'd said things to reporters. I'd posted things online. I wanted people to know what was happening, but maybe I added fuel. I accepted my part. Dana didn't. She exploded in the courtroom. Screamed at the judge. Called me a lonely freak. Said this was discrimination against families. She had to be escorted out by security. Scott just stood there, silent, staring at the floor. And then? They didn't pay. 10 days passed. Nothing removed. Nothing paid. Not even a phone call from their side. Mr. Jameson filed for enforcement. We got a court order. Then a crew showed up on my property, hired by the county to rip out every piece of the swing set, fire pit, mulch, chairs. All of it. I watched from my window as they dismantled it, piece by piece. The crew laughed. Said, "This thing's moldy as hell." I didn't say a word. Neighbors gathered. Phones out. Filming. Dana stood in her driveway, sobbing. I didn't feel sorry anymore. She had months to fix this. Scott was gone. Found out later he'd moved out and filed for divorce. Her bakery business? Shut down. Turns out, she'd never filed the right licenses, and the media attention triggered an inspection. She lost it all. Me? I planted a new garden where the swing set used to be. Roses, lavender, sunflowers. It took a while. I still had to deal with online trolls for a bit. But slowly, people forgot. Life went quiet again. Was I petty? Maybe. Did I lose my temper? Yeah, at times. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. But I fought for what was mine, and in the end, all it took was one swing set to break the illusion of nice neighbors forever. My yard is peaceful now, and this time, everyone knows to stay out of it.